יהיו לרצון, אמרי פי והגיון ליבי, לפניך, לפניך. אדוני, צורי וגואלי, אדוני, צורי וגואלי, וגואלי.
Brief mention of this week's Torah portion before I have the honor of introducing our speaker for this evening. This week's Torah portion is Toldot in the book of Breshit, the book of Genesis. It is the continuation of the story of really one family that takes up most of the book. And this is the week in which Esau, there are countervailing versions. It seems Esau gives away his birthright out of hunger coming out from the fields, and or it is taken from him, stolen from him, tricked by tricking Isaac. Jacob and Rebekah kind of fool Isaac, and thereby Isaac giving the birthright to Jacob when it actually should belong to Esau. I want to kind of focus on Esau for just a brief moment with a couple of things that speaks to his marginalization and what that means in general, I think. And he is marginalized. And if not marginalized, by the time you get to Talmud, it's almost like demonized for being different. And it points to a sense of not really looking at the person. And so this happens in two ways in the Torah portion. The first is when he gives away his birthright because of hunger, it's often interpreted as some sign of weakness. There's a book written by Dr. Orahorn Prauser, full disclosure, the dean of my seminary, and one of my teachers, called Esau's Blessing, where she focuses on different personalities in Torah and Tanakh and Bible who are in some way have some sort of disability. And in this case, she points to Esau's disability as being ADHD. So he is one who would be quick to give away a birthright, to be somewhat reflexive in his conduct without thinking about it too hard. But also, we'll learn in a later Torah portion, Esau is also quick to forgive Jacob for Jacob's transgression against Esau, which also speaks to somebody who ADHD doesn't hold a grudge. The other marginalization piece is that Esau ends up marrying two Hittite women and then Ishmael's daughter, and that he married out of the faith. We know in our Kol Ami community the extraordinary contributions made by non-Jewish spouses in our own community. And particularly in the case of somebody such as Ishmael's daughter, who in a sense is progeny from the same source from Abraham and Sarah, or in this case for Ishmael, Abraham and Hagar, but Abraham is a source, that maybe we should have been more accepting and more understanding and more willing to keep Esau within community and make him part of our community and not marginalize him and certainly not demonize him. So with that, I do have the honor of introducing our speaker for this evening, and thrilled that our speaker series is back. We learn much when we bring guest speakers in, and tonight will be no exception. I've known Suzanne Gladney and you, Alan Lieber, too, I think it goes back to the B'nai Yehuda Social Justice Committee in the mid-'80s, and have admired your work in the community from the very beginning through now and beyond. I kind of, if they gave out baseball cards, like, you know, like those baseball cards for heroes, I would have you as two of my cards. That people that I want to somehow not just admire, but exemplify. And particularly Suzanne's work with the immigration community goes back those many years and beyond. Suzanne Gladney is the attorney, the executive director of Migrant Farmworkers Assistance Fund, one of our 4 justice partners. Prior to that, she was managing attorney for Legal Aid of Western Missouri, particularly specializing in immigration law. I dare say, Suzanne, you've probably saved countless lives and given quality of life to so many more, seeking the humanity in all and not marginalizing anyone, something that we as Jews should understand better than anybody, given our own immigration experience. So with that, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce Suzanne Gladney.
Doug's a little taller than I am. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be back here. I was the director of the UNICEF program for Kansas City for about 30 years, and my office for that was just on the other side of this wall over here. So actually, I think I still have keys to this building too, from years ago. I thank Deborah and Stan for introducing us to Kol Ami, and I've known Doug, as he said, for a very long time, so I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy that we are one of the 4 mitzvah projects that Kol Ami has decided on. In 10 minutes, it is not possible to tell you everything about migrant farm workers as people or the organization that I'm happy to be part of. Migrant farm workers are very close to us here. They're less than an hour away in the western part of Lafayette County. Lafayette County is the county that immediately adjoins Jackson County. So if you just go like on Independence Avenue, which is Highway 24, if you just continue on that, you will end up in Lafayette County. The orchards, there are lots of apple orchards, peach orchards out there. There are 3 of them that are large enough that they have labor camp housing on their properties. The others are generally small family-owned farms that have U-pick or a very few number of family workers that pick their properties. When I started this program in 1984 inside Legal Aid, I grew up in Missouri. I had no idea. My parents grew up in northern Missouri living on farms. I had no idea that we had migrants in Missouri. And that's because we are a very, very small migrant state. We have about 6,000 migrants that come through Missouri, and the largest group of them are down in the Boot Heel of Missouri. That's actually where I started the program, was down in the Boot Heel, because that's where the largest group of migrants are. It became really obvious that the type of program that we have in Lafayette County could not operate in that big of a migrant population, and so we needed to set up many other organizations down there to spread out over the Boot Heel. Legal Aid continues to do some work down there, and we are somewhat a part of that a little bit, but our majorities are in Lafayette County. The orchards in Lafayette County spread over about 60 miles. We have about 81 children still left after the migrants have now left for the season. We have about 60 families, 60 to 65 families that live on orchard properties year-round. So year-round, we're serving around 300 to 400 people. The migrants arrive in the last week of July, and they just now are leaving. They left in the end of October, and we had about 400 here this year. So we go from 350 to 400 to bloomed up to 800 for about 3.5 months. I was telling Doug outside that we're so excited and waiting for them to arrive at the end of July. And at the end of October, where we just have been, we are thinking there surely must be oranges in Florida and Texas that are waiting for you folks to get there because we're exhausted. We have a holistic program that serves people in a lot of different services because it's an extremely rural area. I don't know for sure here in Kansas City that there is something similar, but I haven't ever lived myself in a place that is 30 to 35 miles from a grocery store. So over this 60-mile span, there's one grocery store, and it's in Lexington, and it's tiny. My sister said one time, living close to there, that she was not going to live anywhere again that didn't have fresh mushrooms. I mean, you're lucky if you can get a fresh stalk of celery in the grocery store there. So we do food distribution. That's why one of the things that you're looking for us are rice and beans. Those are staples of the people we're serving. So it's white rice, not minute rice, and it is pinto beans, dry, hopefully not in cans. So we go through about 200 food bags a week. You all have also been providing brown paper bags. If we don't get them donated from people who save them at the grocery store for us, then we have to buy them. And so we have in many years purchased brown paper bags for these 200 grocery bags a week. We also do a lot of just distribution of clothing. There is one Walmart in Lafayette County. It's in Higginsville, and it's not a giant Walmart. The largest Walmart is in Marshall, and from Lexington, it's about 50 miles over there. So when you have people who often don't have a vehicle, or they may have a vehicle, but they don't have a lot of money to be able to drive 100 miles round trip to get to Walmart in Marshall, we do clothing distribution, especially for the migrants. They arrive in the end of July when can get up to 100 degrees, and they're still here in the end of October. They're limited, very limited in what they're allowed to bring in the vans and school buses that bring them here. And so they don't have the right clothing from July that they need at the end of October. We do a lot with education. The kids that are in the migrant stream and the kids who live here year-round are in 3 different school districts that spread out over this territory, from Wellington to Lexington to the Santa Fe district. I don't know how many of you know very much about rural schools, but Wellington has 114 students in 13 grades. They graduated 6 students last year. It's so tiny, nobody in Wellington, on a per-student formula in public schools, nobody in Wellington gets a very good education when you have 114 students. So we have students in those 3 districts. There is one black child, and that child is a Jamaican student who's in 1st grade, who's one of our students. So our students are the minority, and they're very, very few. We have 7 students in Wellington. We have about 25 students in Lexington, and we have about 40 students in the Santa Fe district. So we have students spread out all over. We have a teen leadership program where we have a staff person and a vehicle sitting at each one of these schools on Tuesday afternoon, and we bring them to a middle place to have a session together where at least you can have about 20 teenagers that are all Mexican or all Latino. Most of them are Mexican derivatives or born in Mexico. So we do a lot with education. We had 7 graduates this year. That's the most we've ever had in a year. And 5 of those students are in college. That's a big, big, big chore to get those students all in college and to help them navigate that stretch. Most of their parents have not had even a high school class at all. Many of their fathers went to school in rural Mexico where they only have elementary school, and then you have to go to a nearby town that has a high school and pay for your child to go there and to live there. So most of the dads don't even read and write well in Spanish. So what else do we do? I try to talk to my staff about that we are not, even though the government says we are a charity, we're not a charity. This is not charity that we're offering. This is justice that we're offering to people. We do a lot of healthcare case management. Many of the folks that we serve, especially the migrants, this is their medical home because they are here longer than they are anywhere else. Most of them are moving 3 to 4 locations during the year, and they're here for almost 4 months. So they can get their basic annual visit. We have worked with a clinic system for several years that if their diabetes is under control with the medication, they will give us a year prescription so that they can follow up and get their prescriptions in other places. We did almost 600 appointments last year, and I think we'll get close to that this year of medical and dental appointments. So, why do we do this? Two things in Jewish heritage of mine is that in Hebrews, you remember always that we were wanderers and that we were strangers, and that you may, by helping them, have entertained angels without knowing it. Also in Leviticus, that when strangers reside with you in your land, you will help them and you will love them as you love yourself, because you were strangers in Egypt. I think those are the part of the reasons of why we're doing it. I think another reason is that they are the people who pick many, many, many parts of the food that we eat. There's many apples and oranges cannot be picked by machines. They're picked by people's hands. And the migrants that we serve are up on ladders 14, 16 hours a day, and picking apples, picking peaches. They're really delicious. And having them give them to you the day that they pick them, when we go out there, they are always giving us apples and peaches. And they're really delicious. So, how can Kol Ami help us? I think just understanding more about who they are. We use volunteers, especially during the season, during the apple season. So basically, we have volunteers help us on Monday nights, every Monday, starting from the first Monday in August to the last Monday in October. So I think that might be a possibility to see if there's a group that want to come out on a Monday and help us. It's in a big, huge open parking lot. We have a Migrant Head Start program. There wasn't a Migrant Head Start program for many years. I was able to get it established. This was the 17th year for it this year. We're in a building that was built as a roller rink, a roller skating rink. But it's a lot of fun outside. It's very communal. A lot of people coming, walking around, seeing somebody that worked with them 2 or 3 years ago that they didn't know was here this year. Little kids running around like crazy, people looking at T-shirts and other things, and just having a really good evening with us taking food bags, making food bags. Continue to bring paper bags here, put them in the green bucket out there. Continue to bring rice and beans. We go through literally tons of rice and beans. We're a harvester's agency also. We get harvesters about 5 to 6 tons of food a month that come on the third Tuesday. So we're going through a lot of rice and beans. One of the things that I think might be a project just over the next few weeks, we have kids that'll be sitting at home in a trailer or in a labor camp unit over winter break with really nothing to do other than maybe a school book. So coloring books or little books that might interest them, so like word search books, word puzzles, things like that, that we could take out to them. We go out there and see them all the time while they're on their break because literally they're sitting there with nothing to do. Rural internet is pretty limited, so a lot of them don't have access to the internet or to any cell towers out there, so literally they're just sitting there for a long time over the winter break. So, questions? That's who we are and what we do. There must be a question somewhere.
I have a question.
Yes.
What about funding?
What about funding? Well, thank you for asking. Funding is something that's always something we need, of course, and our budget this year is about $300,000. We get a fair amount of money from the Reach Healthcare Foundation and Health Forward Foundation for the health services that we're providing. We're close to having vaccinated 200 people this year. We had nurses, 2 nurses that went out with us to the labor camps. Right in the middle of the orchards, underneath the trees, doing vaccinations. And it was really great. The idea that some populations, including Latinos, are opposed to it is not what we see at all. In fact, these workers said, we are here to work. We do not get anything if we're not working. We have no sick leave. We have no days off. We cannot be sick. We want that vaccine right now. I mean, they wanted it the first day that we were talking about it. So we were able to get, with the refrigeration requirements and all that, you're taking it out, you're taking it into the camps where it's 90 degrees. So we were really just racing back and forth to Lexington to get it. I was telling Doug that we also were taking photos of their vaccine cards. I don't know, probably everybody here is vaccinated, and you know that those cards are just impossible. I don't know who at the CDC thought that a card that size was a good idea. You can't put it in your wallet. These people are very mobile, and it's hard for them to hold on to things like that. So we have photos of them where you can just imagine that it's lost or damaged, and they're somewhere, and they say, well, I was in an apple orchard. I don't really know exactly where I was, and I don't know the name of the clinic, and that, how would they find it? So we're just giving them our business card and saying, if you lose it, call us. We have a picture of it, and we can get another one from the clinic. So we've been doing a lot with vaccinations. A lot of them had been in other places and hadn't been able to get it. So funding is something we can always use. Yes, Wynn? The question's how do people support themselves through the non-picking seasons? Their crew leader arranges for another place for them to go next, and so typically the migratory folks from here go to either South Texas or North Florida for citrus. They will be there until about March or April, and then they will start a northward progression. Usually some of them are stopping to do onions in Vidalia onions in Georgia on their way, and then some will go up to Michigan and do cherries up there and then come down here. Some will do corn detasseling across Indiana and Iowa before they come down here. Typically, they have about a 2-week span in between because the orchard contracts with a crew leader to bring them and has a date that they have to be here because they have to know for sure they've got enough people to do the season. And so typically they're here for about a week to a week and a half, just sitting in the unit. They have to be here, but they're not getting paid. And so that's an opportunity for us. As soon as they arrive, usually we're in touch with the crew leaders while they're on the way. And we have lists of people who have been here before that we know have chronic illnesses, and that first 10 days is a good time for us to get a lot of appointments done that we pay for. I mean, we pay the discounted price. This year it was $40 for each appointment to be able to get them processed and get their medications before, or dental work before they were going. So they're for a husband and wife that are both working. Typically, apples and peaches are both very heavy laden water fruits, so they're really heavy. And so it's called a basket, but it's this big contraption that they wear. It's usually from 75 to 100 pounds filled with, and they're up and down the ladder just many, many times an hour with that. So it's really too heavy for most women to be able to do. Most of the women work in the packing shed, so which is essentially an apple factory, standing on concrete and processing apples, washing, polishing, determining whether they're apple juice, apple sauce, or apples that are going to be in the store. And so typically, a husband-wife group will make about $28,000 to $30,000 a year total. The year-round people are typically the same, but the men usually have, mostly they have a year-round work. They also are pickers during the season, but then in the off-season, most tree fruits, apples and peaches, bear a good solid amount of apples and peaches for about 7 or 8 years, and then those trees have to be torn out and new trees put in. So they're constantly doing acreages of trees. They're also oiling and working on the machinery that's in the packing sheds, or just hundreds of conveyor belts and things that need to be worked on over the winter. Tractors, pallet jacks, all those kind of things. Most of the women don't have any work after the packing shed closes because they're just in such rural areas. There's not any stores. Waverly is about 300 people, and that's the site of the largest orchard. And there's a Casey's gas station, and there's an auto parts store. The major event in Waverly a year and a half ago was that a Dollar General opened. So if you can't buy what you need at Casey's gas station or Dollar General or the auto parts, you are about 40 miles any direction from another store. Anything else? Yes? Question, are they on year-round visas or have to go back? We had this year about 130 that were on, they're called H-2A, agriculture temporary visas. Those folks needed to leave by the 3rd week of October. They had been doing some melons in South Missouri before they came here. The contractor that worked with them this year was brand new to Missouri, had never had a contract in Missouri before. He's from Georgia. And so those folks had been here about 5 months total when they left. Most of the other workers are not here on any kind of a visa like that. We have a lot of blended families where the kids often were born here and are U.S. citizens. Dad may have legalized through the amnesty program, farm worker amnesty program in 85, 86. Sometimes mom is in the process of getting legalized through dad being legalized. but that's a really long wait. So it's a kind of a variety of mixes. We have a number of people, I think of the 5 graduates that are in college, only one of them has one parent who's legally here. So again, you've got people that are very, very hesitant to drive because the likelihood that they might be stopped by the police, not have a driver's license, then be turned over to immigration is pretty high. And so just very careful about driving or, so that's kind of the year-round people. Do students have to pay out-of-state tuition? Most of the students are U.S. citizens of the year-round people that we have, the 5 students that are in college this year, 5 students that graduated this year. We actually have 8 students in college this year that we're working with. They don't pay out-of-state tuition in Missouri because they graduated from a Missouri high school. We have one that's in Chicago. Her grandmother lives in Chicago. Her grandmother was also a migrant, but now has retired and is in Chicago. So we have one student in Chicago this year. She's at a private school, Roosevelt University, that's very close to where her mom lives, her grandmother lives. So, but the kids, most of the kids, I'm just trying to think, I think all of the kids that we have right now were born in the United States. So we have had kids that were not, but right now, the little Jamaican boy was not born here, but he's legally here as a resident.
Suzanne, where is your headquarters? Where's your office?
Our office is here in Kansas City. We're in Midtown, right on Armour Boulevard, just right close to the Luce Mansion. That's where Stan and Deborah come about every other Sunday or Saturday afternoon and drop off a car full of paper bags, switching it from their car into one of our vehicles. We're a really small organization. There are 6 of us that work. We have a number of part-time people that work for us just during the season, that come just on Tuesdays to help us with the teen group or can come and help us interpret at medical and dental appointments. Yes? During the summer, who takes care of the kids when their parents are working? Most of the women don't start working until about the middle of the peach harvest. The packing sheds don't open until there's enough fruit picked to keep it going the whole time. So typically, the women don't start working until about the middle of June. And so then they will work continually until the end of October. So older kids taking care of littler ones, older kids taking care of somebody else's little one. We do a lot of summer activities. I don't know if you, Missouri, I don't even remember for sure when this happened, but Missouri stopped funding summer school several years ago unless you had a large number of students. And so these schools don't have summer school. They will only have summer school if you need credit recovery in order to be able to graduate. So they have about a 2-week summer school. Two of the school districts do. So there's no school from about the middle of May until the second week of August. We do a lot of going out and doing activities with the kids. Not getting them all into our vehicles because there's just too many of them to kind of move them all around, but doing things in their front yard or just walking with them. These tiny towns, like in Waverly, there's no paved street except the highway. And so the streets, and most of the kids don't have bicycles because they're right next to the river. They're just within within a block of the river is where they live, the Missouri River. And we've had a child drown. So the river is really dangerous. So they're just kind of staying at home. So we have these activities, making slime, making ice cream, doing things you can make in your front yard, activities, origami and different things, just sitting and talking with them, reading with them. We try to do activities pretty much almost every day in some neighborhoods and gathering kids together. Do any of the schools require it? Is that what you're saying? No, there's a Supreme Court decision, I don't know, probably 40, 50 years ago that says that regardless of your immigration status, you have the right to go to public school. So what we have trouble with, the biggest trouble in that area is just school records, especially for the migratory students. A school wants to see the record of where you've last been, and if you were in 3 schools last year, your mom or dad may not have been able to get all of those records and still have them and bring them with you. Texas schools don't open typically until September, and they open here in August. So if we have a Texas kid, you can't even get the records from the school because there's not anybody there yet. So we've had trouble with that, with getting kids even started in school because we can't get the records there. Other questions? Thank you. I'd be happy to answer more questions any other time, or just have you come out, even if you're not coming on a Monday night, if you want to come out and just sort of go on a trip with us down the road and sort of see. There's large no trespassing signs at all of these places, but we have permission to be on their property. The buses, the school buses don't go onto their property. They can't get mail on those properties. So because there's no mailbox and the post office isn't allowed to go down there. So the kids wait on the highway for the bus, for the school buses to pick them up. But we have permission to go on the orchard, so we take a number of people just kind of in our van and just go around and let you see kind of what it looks like. Thank you for your support.
And thank you for tonight for all the work that you do, the incredible work you do. A few prayers to conclude our service. It's time now when we think about those who can't be with us due to illness. We wish them Rufuah Shlema, Rufat HaNefesh, Rufat HaGuf, a complete healing, a healing in both spirit and body. On the top of page 203 is the Mishaberic prayer for healing. There are some names posted. Are there any other names of those you know who are in need of a blessing of healing? Yeah, Pat. Okay, thanks. Brad. Thanks. Anybody else? Page 203.
Of strength, bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. Let us say, Amen. Mishaberic, Imotenu,
rise for Aleinu, page 214.
ולא שמענו במשפחות האדמה, שלא שמנו דרכנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל העולם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, בדעת היום והושבותה לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת
Middle of 216.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
For mourners Kaddish, observing the yahrzeit of Charlene Fleischer, friend of Brad Ordo. Also recall one laid to rest this week, Andrew Corson, the brother of Ethan Corson. Anybody else observing a yahrzeit or wishes someone's name to be remembered for mourners Kaddish? Kaddish Chateau, mourners Kaddish, page 221. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma diraki rute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon v'yamechon uv'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru, Yehei shmei rabbah mavrak le'olam l'omei omaya, yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudisha brichu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. I want to thank our wonderful musicians, to Brenda, to Judith, to Karen. Thank you so much for beautiful music tonight, for leading us in worship. To our friends at All Souls, our tech crew, Mark Gibbons, Andrea Johnson, and new to the team, J.D. Mann. Thank you all so much. Also, Anthony Edwards, the Director of Music Arts here at All Souls, and my colleague and friend, Reverend Dr. Kendall Gibbons. Coming up in the next week, next Friday night is Family Program Night. The family program part begins at 6 o'clock, followed by a short service at 6:45. Look for an announcement in our newsletter, but I think we'll be back out on the patio here at All Souls. That seems to be working well for us. We're intrepid. We can handle a little cold. At least so far we've been okay. Weekdays, well, let me backtrack. Tomorrow morning, 9:30 to 10:30, we continue our study of angels in Judaism. either in person at our house or via Zoom. If you are coming to the house, let me know after services. We'll have some coffee for you. Other than that, weekday mornings, 8 to 8:15, we do a very abridged morning service, shacharit service, with a little study. We do a little Talmud every morning, a little bit of Rabbi Jill Hammer's Jewish Book of Days. It's been a great way for us to stay connected, so if you have the time at 8 o'clock, just jump on Zoom and join us. Any other announcements? Anything going on coming up? When? You know more about it than I do. So. Yeah, November 13th. Yeah, from 5 to 7 over there at, yeah, I do know the time and I know the place. That much I do know about. That's about it. Anything else? Okay. Kiddush and Motzi, you find it starting on 231. Vayihir vayvoker yom hashishi, vayechulu hashamayim ve'aretz, v'chol tzivam, vayechol Elohim bayom hashvi, malakto asher asa, vayishbot bayom hashvi, mikol malakto asher asa, vayevarech Elohim et yom hashvi, vayekadesh oto, Ki hivo shavat mikol malakto, asher bara Elohim lasot. Page 232. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodesho be'ahava v'ratzon hinchilanu, Zikaron l'maseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol amim, V'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh hashabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Good Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom. Oh, good.